All right, everybody, come one, come all, and welcome to JMT Consulting's webinar today, highlighting MIP fund accounting, made and brought to you by Abila and Community Brands. I am broadcasting live from our Paterson, New York headquarters. Before we dive in, I wanted to take a moment to review a couple housekeeping or logistical tidbits. First, this webinar is currently set up for one-way communication only, meaning audience members cannot currently be heard by the group. So should you have a question at any point along the way, please feel free to ask it in the chat box. And that chat box is going to be found about 2/3 of the way down the GoToMeeting control panel on your screen, if you haven't yet minimized that. We might not get to all the questions immediately, but there will be answered by the end. We promise you that. And before I forget, we will be reaching out to each and every one of you individually tomorrow or Monday. So if you're anything like me and you come up with 67 or 68 questions immediately after disconnecting from the webinar, do not fear. We will be reaching out to you. So what we'd like to accomplish today in broad strokes is twofold, right? We want to give you a better, more complete picture of who JMT is, what we do, and why we do it. And we also want to give you a glimpse into how Abila or Community Brands' ERP product, MIP Fund Accounting, might be the perfect fit for your growing nonprofit. And then at the end, we're going to open it up for what I hope is a lively and spirited Q&A session. So my name is Brendan Sohan, and I'm an account manager here at JMT. I work both with our existing client base currently using Abila products, and I work with net new clients who do not yet own an Abila product or MIP, and also ones that are new to JMT. My territory is the northeast corridor of the good old US of A, and those states include New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine. And I also get the pleasure of working with our clients in those tropical islands and US territories. I've been here for about 8 years here at JMT. I love it here. I love what I do. And most of all, I love working with our JMT clients. Dan Wharton is also joining us live for the webinar this afternoon. He'll be taking over here in just a little bit. Dan is broadcasting, or will be broadcasting, out of our Round Rock, Texas office, which is right near Austin, right near the MIP headquarters. Dan is relatively new to JMT, but has been around the MIP product for about 5 years now. Dan, previous to working with JMT, worked directly for Abila in a similar role, except that he focused only on existing clients. And now he has the opportunity to work with the net new clients as well. So you'll notice next to Dan's title, it says ROW, or ROW. That stands for Rest of World, as it relates to his territory. The bulk of that would be every state outside of the Northeast. I'm not going to name them. But we absolutely also have many international clients from Canada to Guam, Afghanistan, Tanzania. So he handles all of those also. I'm probably speaking a little bit for Dan here, but I think we very much enjoy being able to work with the net new and existing clients. The benefit, though, really is extended onto the client in the sense, because after your implementation, you go back to working with either Dan or myself on an ongoing basis throughout the relationship. So there's no need to meet more new people, right? You get to continue working with the same friendly faces that you originally started working with at JMT. The first thing on my agenda here was to give you a better understanding as to who JMT Consulting is. Well, JMT is an independent vendor agnostic firm that works only with nonprofits. That part might be worth remembering, so I'll repeat it. JMT exclusively works with nonprofits. We, in our 25+ year history, do not, have not, and will not entertain a for-profit client. To that extent, over the 27 years we've been in business, we've gained about 2,000 clients across the nonprofit spectrum. Those clients encompass every nonprofit vertical, from museums to health and human service organizations, opera houses, FQHCs or federally qualified health centers, professional organizations, membership organizations, philanthropic funds, Native American tribes, municipalities. I'm sure there's a bunch more and everything in between. Being vendor agnostic means that JMT is not tied to one specific vendor. This is great, and because of this, we offer many different types of solutions that solve relatively small problems to relatively big problems, and again, everything in between. As I mentioned a couple slides ago, Abila and MIP are not the only company or product JMT represents. It just so happens that MIP is a rock solid, very capable, robust, powerful, and easy to use fund accounting platform. And it tends to fit the lion's share of organizations out there, but it doesn't mean that it's a be-all, end-all. To that extent, you'll notice some logos up on the screen right now, and those are some past and present solutions we've offered in the ERP space. And being a full-service outfit here at JMT, we also represent add-on or third-party applications to help augment your MIP system in an effort to get it just right for your organization's needs. Some of those areas might include, let's say, add-on purchasing systems that will allow your team to go fully electronic with the purchasing. We offer timekeeping systems, expense management systems, budget systems, automated AP, and a whole lot more. So, not just the core accounting stuff. And I think what I'm trying to drive at here is that JMT really takes the client's needs approach from the get-go. Being agnostic and not tied to one specific vendor or solution or idea allows us to really hunker down, uncover all of your needs as a client, sort through them with you, talk through them with you, prioritize them, and then finally architect the correct solution based on our findings. It prevents us from architecting a one-size-fits-all type solution, and because we're not very big fans of that over here. This is really important and why I think working with a certified partner like JMT is the best decision any nonprofit can make when evaluating a major change like an ERP migration. If you have had the pleasure or unfortunate displeasure of going through an implementation or migration of one accounting platform to another, you'll most likely have picked up a few tips, tricks, and rules to live by along the way. These are a few things to consider. Picking the correct partner for your needs will most likely be a deal breaker for you. Software is literally just a tool. That's it. Think of accounting software like the building materials one would use to build a house. Sure, all the materials have been delivered, but it's useless if they're just sitting there in a pile on what's eventually going to be your front lawn. Digging a little deeper, the team you use to build that house will be making all the difference in the world for your home and your family. The same rules apply when we're talking about an ERP migration. Again, software is just a 17-digit download key. It's how efficient and comprehensive the partner is that makes the difference. We see it day in and day out. Some of you may have experience using the software publisher for implementations in the past. It seems like a solid, sound, and logical decision to go with the software publisher for your implementation, right? Well, maybe not. Maybe not. Software companies tend to do one thing really, really well, and that's make great software. They're typically not in the business of implementing that software, though, but they'll still do it. What you tend to get when evaluating a software publisher for implementation is a stripped-down level of service, more of the work and heavy lifting and the onus being put on your team's shoulders. And ultimately, I find as you get, through your implementation, you'll ultimately get passed around from contact to contact at the software company as your team is completing task after task that's assigned to you. At JMT, we very much dislike those characteristics of an implementation, and we pride ourselves on fixed fee, efficient, wholesome, and comprehensive implementations. Yes, I did say fixed fee. At this point, I'm going to switch it over to Dan Wharton. He's got a bunch of really great stuff to tell us about the MIP system.
Thank you, Brendan. Let me take the controls here. And we'll get started. First things first, I'm going to apologize to you, the audience. This is my first experience, my first rodeo as a presenter, and quite honestly, I have no idea what to expect. Brendan did a phenomenal job of encapsulating what it means to work with a partner, work with a well-established partner, and why that's important. The good news is that this really isn't about me. It's about MIP, and the software quite literally sells itself. That said, I still feel like I might have a panic attack, so I'm going to roll through these slides. And again, we're going to ask you to hold off all questions until the end of the presentation. So, first things first, let's understand why we recommend MIP fund accounting. MIP has been around since the early 80s and has always been marketed to 501c registered organizations. Brendan gave quite a few examples of what those could possibly be. And quite honestly, we've worked with just about everyone under that roster. Over the course of its existence, it's had a few facelifts over the years, but at its core, it's maintained its structure, and therein lies the strength, and one of the reasons why a lot of nonprofits continue to implement MIP. If you choose to evaluate MIP, maybe you want to take a look at trustradius.com. Trustradius.com is the largest aggregator of independent ratings and reviews for nonprofit software solutions, and I would encourage you to read through all of the reviews. There's about 500 of them, and the vast majority of them are by far and away raving fans. Now that I think about it, if you aren't familiar with Trust Radius, it's trustradius.com. Although a bit subjective, there are plenty of ways in which MIP demonstrates how it's easy to use. Well, you want to allocate across several funds or create a distribution code? Do it. Want to run a year cost analysis for employee benefits? Do it. Need to find a bunch of old invoices and only have a few minutes before you lose it on the auditor or before you crumble? Do it. Everything I mentioned can be done within a few simple clicks. One thing to point out as well is Community Brands does a really good job of listening to customers. And so you see this bullet point, customer-driven product development. They're constantly asking questions, deciphering answers, and pushing out new functionality to the customer base. And they have a large customer base to sample from. 6,000 active customers puts them really within the top 3. If you doubt what you're seeing on Trust Radius or hearing from others, know this. The retention rate hasn't dipped below 97% in 10 plus years. That means customers are constantly renewing, and it's not just because of the headache that comes with switching out your ERP solution. It really is because MIP is a very capable product and tends to adapt over time. So what are some of the important characteristics of MIP? I'm really going to read off this particular screen because it's all self-explanatory. Track donor restrictions on net assets, full support for traditional fund accounting, including automated interfund balancing entries. You can easily segregate expenses for functional expense reporting, report on any number of fiscal calendars easily and accurately. And you're doing this within the tool, not just doing a data dump onto Excel and manipulating numbers there. This is a product with a full set of FAS 117 compliant financials on demand. You can accurately and consistently allocate costs both directly and after the fact. And of course, there is a robust audit trail. So some of you in the audience are currently using QuickBooks. Let's talk about how MIP is structurally different from QuickBooks and why it might be time to upgrade. So what does table-driven mean? So at its core, MIP is a table-driven solution, a table-driven general ledger. On this particular slide, I'm going to draw your attention to the bottom, and this is what MIP is not. This is what we don't mean by table-driven. This is a classic example of a linear chart of accounts. This is just a small example, but customers who are using a linear method will often tell us that their chart of accounts is more than 50 pages long. We know this because we go through this during the implementation or setup phase. These long archaic strings are comprised of every possible combination of code. And therein lies the problem. It's cumbersome to maintain, difficult to isolate the specific piece of data you're trying to report, and do either of these things really help you tell a good story? They don't. Something else we hear quite often is how customers were able to grab the data they wanted, but a bunch of stuff that they didn't want to come along came with it. So they used to dump all their data in Excel and then manipulate the data exactly the way they want it. We're going to tell you the same thing that we told them. With a table-driven chart of accounts, those problems go away. They don't exist. MIP allows you to characterize your segments and match the report data to the story you want to tell your board. MIP's report writer gives you a starting point in the hundreds of pre-built canned reports, and then allows you to expand by using custom tools to build the exact report you want. This is all done inside of MIP, not on a spreadsheet where human error comes into play. A simple example of what a table-driven chart of accounts can produce is, let's say you want your budget that spreads across company 2, fund 200, account 10, department 10, program 100 and 200, but not 300. Well, I just threw out a whole bunch of criteria at you, but quite honestly, this is very easily accomplished with an MIP. We'll take a closer look at what MIP's report writer looks like later on in the presentation. So you might hear that software comes to you in different flavors, and MIP is no exception. There are flexible deployment options. We can tell you that not every nonprofit is ready to make a move to the cloud, and they may not ever make that change. Of the 5 years that I've been working with MIP customers, I'd say maybe half have sparked some sort of interest, and the other half have either pulled the trigger already or are heading in that direction. The great thing with MIP is that you do have the freedom of choice. So MIP is very easy to maintain and host on your own server or a rented server if you happen to outsource your IT to a local company. This more traditional offering comes with the same standard set of responsibilities. You maintain the software, there's annual maintenance, there's technical support, upgrades, and so on. On the flip side, the alternative is to subscribe to the software, have MIP hosted in the cloud, and all you have to worry about is maintaining access to the internet. Keep the lights on, the software will work. If you aren't sure, let us know and we can share with you the tools that we've created to help you make the right choice. So let's take a look. I'm going to be showing a few screenshots throughout the presentation, so we won't see everything that MIP has to offer. Now, the one thing I want to emphasize is that each and every organization can create a custom chart of accounts that is unique to suit their specific needs. And so you can have as few or as many segments as you want. You can name them whatever you want. You can assign them any code that you want. The one thing we'll do is help you decide what codes work best for you now and in the future. As with any software system, there are these little gotchas that pop up, and JMT can help you navigate through all of them. One thing here buried within the chart of accounts is something I want to call out here. I want to call out the grant administration tab. You can see it in the upper left-hand corner. This is a function that is now built in MIP. It used to come as a separate module, but again, over time and through one of the facelifts, grant administration was buried into the GL. But what it does is it allows you to manage grant-specific information, things like indirect cost rate, award amounts, dates, demographics, contact information for the grantor requirements, and you can even upload documents and attach them to a specific grant. So that way, you're not running around, you're maintaining all of your data in one place. And this allows you to manage many of the grant requirements without actually requiring you to buy a third-party tool. And this is a big reason why MIP is so popular amongst organizations who are heavily relying on grant funds. Now let's take a look at how to enter a transaction. So I pulled up just a simple starting screen. And so let's start off with accounts payable. And to get there, I really just use a navigation panel and click on the module that corresponds with the action I want to take within MIP. So here, click on AP. Something to note here that it's up to you to decide which modules you need, as only those will show up in the navigation panel. So what I mean by that is MIP comes to you as a software solution. It's up to you to decide which modules you wish to purchase. If you don't have very many fixed assets, for example, to manage, then we recommend you don't purchase that particular module, and it won't be an option that's listed within inside of MIP. Getting back to AP, we first want to look inside the navigation panel and open up the option tree. Notice how there's going to be hot links, guides, related tasks, and system prompts that help you work a little more efficiently. We'll see that here in an upcoming screenshot. If you're just getting started at the beginning of a transaction, then pick up from that point and enter a new transaction. A new screen pops up and prompts you to enter a session ID. MIP thinks in terms of batches, and each batch is a session. Note that you can customize which users can access the screen, which fields are deemed required, and you can even pick which color is used for the field. MIP really is that awesome and customizable. AP user tip number 43. I know it's a random number, but let's just start there. Hit the plus sign in the session ID field, and MIP will automatically populate the next available number in the sequence. Hit tab a couple of times, and the status and date fields will also auto-populate. So at this point, I can choose to enter a description, or I can leave it blank. Once I make a decision, I can then hit start. Here's where you start to convert that paper invoice into a digital invoice. And you do that by referencing a few numbers from the hard copy or whatever you have. AP user tip number 44, again, going in sequence. Tabbing through fields makes for light work. MIP will auto-populate sequences where they are registered. For now, AP user 45, MIP will recognize the beginning characters of a vendor name, populate a list, and prompt you for the right one. So up in the vendor ID, if I simply just type WIN, I will get all of the vendor IDs that match that. Of course, you have the ability to create multiple rows. You'll then select all of the appropriate codes and values for the rest of the transaction. Now, you'll have the ability to create multiple rows for each transaction. The system will let you know via warning messages if you're not in balance or if you're trying to use the wrong offsets. Also note here that if you created a distribution code, you could very easily use a hotkey to auto-populate all of the lines of code, all of the offsets, and it'll do it with just in a few clicks. The transaction detail will be complete. There are 7 different distribution methods in MIP, including percentages and units, so there's really no limit to the amount or type of distribution you can create and manage. That's it. That's all I'm going to focus on in terms of allocations. Let's move over to the budget module. First, the budget worksheet allows you to either build a worksheet from scratch or you can import from Excel. Regardless, MIP will prompt you for a name. And if the name of the worksheet can't be recognized, meaning my starting point is naming a worksheet, and if MIP can't recognize the name because it hasn't been saved inside of the system before, MIP will recognize that and automatically launch a setup wizard. This is there to help you. What I mean by wizard, I remember using Microsoft Office, and they had some little paperclip that helped me or prompted me through the setup or creation of a spreadsheet or a PowerPoint. Same thing. This is very similar. The wizard will ask you some questions and then build you a worksheet. What are the questions? Well, they're things like, do you want to use units or dollars? What's your start date? What are the number of cycles? Duration? What should you include in your comparative analysis? Which segments? Revenue or expense accounts? Maybe both. Things like that. The wizard will then generate a worksheet based on the answers that you give. So there's really no need to spend gobs of time understanding technical language or anything like that. You're simply answering questions to get what you want. So here's an example of what I created inside of the budget wizard. All in all, answering those questions, it took me less than 5 minutes to generate a fairly sophisticated looking worksheet. That's not bad, especially for someone who's definitely not an accountant. Now that I have a starting point, now that I have a data set, I can go into specific cells and do things like add a comment or highlight a particular line item and lock it in. I can also modify on the fly. I can take a particular value and alter its value within the budget worksheet. I can increase or decrease by a specific amount. You see that highlighted here. I can bring in an allocation. I can rest values to 0 or to a different amount. I can also add notes, set a status, or adjust the spread. The really cool thing is that if you change the spread, like I did here in column AG, you can see in the bottom right screenshot, the worksheet will automatically spread the adjustment amount evenly across the end of the year. What you can't see here is that I did a rolling 12 months. If I adjusted a dollar value over an AG, let's say $15, then MIP automatically took that $15 and spread it evenly through 12 months of history. As a side note, MIP offers special user licenses so that folks like program and account managers can interact with this online worksheet. Now, you can control what they see, do, or what they don't do. But the idea is to get them engaged. So you can even provide your executive director or board member with one of these special licenses. So that way they're not maybe bugging you at the wrong time, poor choice of words, but perhaps you want to get them engaged as well, and you want them to be able to answer any questions that might have. There's a lot more to show you, but for the sake of saving time, we'll pause and quickly move over to reporting. So now I've shown you how to enter expenses and how to create a budget worksheet. Now we're going to take a look at how those might look on a report. An MIP comes with dozens and dozens of canned reports. The whole idea is you find a starting point and then customize the reports to match your need. When you click on Report Manager in the navigation panel, a slew of options are presented, and this is where MIP begins to ask you what you want to do with your report. So this left-hand side where it starts with accounting, dashboard, basic transactions, goes all the way down to charting. This is your navigation panel. Now in the middle under the report manager, now I want to start to just answer the simple questions. Where am I? What am I doing? Do you want to create a new financial statement? Do you want to create a task for list for AP? Do you want to standardize reporting format? Do you want to distribute reports on a recurring basis? Some people, dozens and dozens of canned reports may not seem like a lot, but there are hundreds of actions that you can take after that. So let's start simple and start by creating a financial statement. Whenever you click on financial statements, you'll see a list of options pop up in the process manager. And by the way, this is the place where you can save favorite places inside of MIP. So this upper right-hand corner, process manager, is really my favorites folder. So if there are specific areas inside of MIP that I visit routinely or just want a shortcut for, I'm going to place it here just by clicking favorites or right-clicking and then adding as a favorite. Let's see what we might be able to accomplish if we generate a statement of revenues and expenditures. So I used one of the canned reports just by clicking on the right-hand side, and it was automatically brought here. Now, this isn't exactly what I want, so what I'm going to do is right-click and hit Edit. If I right-click on the report name, I get three options. I can edit, run, or add to favorites. I want to show you how to build a report, so I'm going to click on Edit. Here I'm initially brought to the setup screen. Setup, content, filter, groups, options, layout, and security. Within the setup screen, I can click on these various fields and alter what my periods are, what my frequency is, so on and so forth. I would really want to drill into what the R&E reports can give me, so I'm going to go ahead and click on the Content tab. I can grab just about any information I want to throw on it and put it on this monthly R&E report. Going through, you can see all a complete list of available items. If I want to include a program code, I click it, add department code, click it, add it, and so on and so forth. There's no limit to the amount of information I can throw in MIP. If for some reason you encounter a situation where MIP is giving you an error, it will tell you what the error is and exactly how to fix it. So don't feel as though you could possibly break the system. The system is intuitive enough to tell you that either your filter is off, your criteria set is off, and then we'll give you an explanation as to how to go about fixing it. I can also alter the format. So before we were looking at what can I include. Now I can go ahead and alter the format of the actual report. I make my selections and hit start. So the same idea. You click anything here, you add it. If you want to grab a group, you can fast track that process and use this. You may have noticed that MIP keeps track of things like width in your report. So up here, total width 4.4. It allows you to pick and choose what data you want to emphasize. So it allows you to select a cell format. You can group data onto pages. The moral of the story here is that you should not be building reports in Excel. Everything you need in terms of the layout, the customization, criterion, all of that is controlled within the application, so that all you're doing is deciding whether or not you have to do a data dump, or whether you're finally ready to enter that board meeting or presentation. From here, you do have the option to export into Excel, or you can create a PDF. I can email it. I can even drill down. I don't know if you noticed a couple screens back, but there was a little drill icon. If you click on that, you'll actually drill down in the actual transactional detail. I can save from here. I can share with others for creative input. I can schedule a delivery, and I can do a whole lot more with this particular report. We could spend hours going over the rest of the reporting functionality with MIP. We won't, but I will call a few things out, like the analysis reports, where you do GL analysis and generate comparative trial balances. If you decide to purchase the AR modules for MIP, you can report on aged receivables and customer activity. Another thing is financial statement formats. These allow you to standardize your reporting formats. Comes in handy as you add new segment codes, or you have to keep up with new state regulations and grant requirements. The report binder is also where MIP users can go to access saved reports. There's an additional feature which allows you to schedule the distribution of reports. I think I've mentioned this a couple times now. Let me give you an example or explain it a little more thoroughly. Say you want to automatically email your bank reconciliation report out to your AP staff once a week. You can schedule it. So any sort of report that you've built can be placed inside of the binder, and then from there, you can automatically route the delivery of that report or set of reports to individuals or groups of users. It's up to you. It's completely customizable. This last tip is for larger organizations and government agencies who are required to micromanage security or access rights. You can use the advanced security module to restrict access at the account level. This also ties into those special user licenses that I mentioned a few slides ago, and ensures that each user can only see what they are meant to see. And like I said, we could spend hours on this, and we will if you decide you want to evaluate MIP for your organization. For now, we'll pause, take a brief look at some of the other modules MIP has to offer. Jump over to allocations. Here is the allocation module at a high level. It will allow you to do stuff like retroactive allocations. Maybe throughout the month you're accruing administrative overhead costs, for example, utilities and rent. At the end of the month, you want to allocate those expenses to the programs in your organization, but you base that allocation methodology upon something like a relative revenue for each program into the overall revenue of the program during that month, and that determines how much you allocate out. All of this can be set and defined in the allocations module, and you can even create complex payroll allocations with or without the actual payroll module. So maybe you're outsourcing payroll to a third party, they're having difficulties allocating fringe. No worries, assuming you can import the raw data, you can set up the allocations module to give you what you need, even though payroll, again, is happening through a third party. MIP dashboards. This is actually a relatively new module, but we're excited by the initial feedback customers have provided on its interface. Each dashboard can be customized. It's also role-based. It was meant to be role-based, so users are only going to see what matters most. For me, the really exciting part is how each role can be designated a unique set of KPIs, KPIs being key performance indicators. MIP needs a little more time to develop this functionality, but again, really like where this is headed. For the sake of time here, we're not going to roll through absolutely every single module. There are a few more that I want to call out just to let you know that MIP is seen as a fully integrated solution, a very robust solution. At last count, it has 31 individual modules. All of them are plug and play, are meant to be plug and play. They are dependent, or there are dependencies that are automatically built in. What I mean by that is if you decide that you want to add electronic funds transfer, you can simply add that to the AP module, and as soon as you plug it in, it will automatically sync and automatically start working the way that you want, meaning it's going to read, push and pull data the way that you need it to. A few others. You can add a requisitions module, which would allow you to build in a truly paperless workflow environment and centralize the PO process. The fixed assets module provides organization with a powerful tool for tracking assets, easily calculating depreciation, and then automatically allocating depreciation and disposal entries into the GL. MIP also offers an HR management suite. This includes payroll, HR, timekeeping, and even benefit enrollment functions. Brendan, I think I'm done here in terms of highlighting the areas of MIP that I really wanted to focus on today. Let's open it up for some Q&A. How about that?
Good deal. Yep, I'm off mute. Good. I have a few questions in so far. How long does an implementation take? So I'll handle this first question here. The answer is going to be super variable depending on a lot of different factors. If you are coming off of something very basic and rudimentary where you're not using a bunch of different aspects of it, like QuickBooks or Sage 50, or formerly known as Peachtree, if you're coming off of something like that where you're outsourcing your payroll and you only have 2 or 3 users using the system, then you can expect a lesser lengthy implementation. If you are a, I don't know, $190 million organization using every single aspect available to you of Blackbaud, and you want to migrate to something very complex in MIP, you can expect those implementations to take longer. Generally speaking, I would set a baseline at 4 months. Again, there's other variables that play into that too. How dedicated is the structure of your team? Do you have folks that are dedicated to the tasks and moving the tasks along and so on and so forth? But you generally, I think, Dan, you'd probably agree with me. We normally see these implementations for MIP center around, what, 4 months, 3.5, 4 months, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, size definitely comes into play here, but it also depends on maybe where you're coming from and whether or not you're doing a little bit of a restructure.
Yeah.
We're seeing it even with existing MIP customers where either they've taken on a new program or they've started to add new services, or they're now soliciting grants, and what that does is it alters the chart of accounts. Whether or not you're at that point, the story here is that it depends on how ready you are to make the change. Meaning, have you gone through and organized your new segment structure? Have you thought about all the account codes? Have you translated the strings into segments and things like that? So assuming you're fully ready to have that conversation, then the migration can go much smoother. If you need more guidance or are unsure and things aren't completely finished, then for certain that could that's going to add another month or two to the implementation time. But yeah, I think your characterization of a quarter to two is certainly the norm.
Yep. And I'm going to pose a follow-up question to that. Is there any time savings if an organization wanted to go with a server-based MIP system for implementation or a cloud-based? And short answer is more or less no. It doesn't take less time to do a cloud implementation than it would an on-premise or server-based.
There may be one caveat to that, if you don't mind me saying it. If you do outsource your IT and for whatever reason they're slow to respond, or there is
yeah, that's true.
I don't know, some sort of complication in getting that set up, processed, and it may be a little bit faster to go ahead and launch in the cloud. But it shouldn't. Those cases are few and far between, but maybe it is something to consider.
How does MIP handle IRS form preparation?
I think I can jump in and answer a couple of different ways. So MIP has all of the necessary forms pre-downloaded, and ready to go. Once you make the decision to either populate the 990 on your own, don't worry about it. You can simply rely on the fact that MIP is already pre-programmed to allow you to manage that 990 form creation. If you decide that you want to outsource any aspect of your taxes or IRS work, MIP has a phenomenal relationship with Atrix. Atrix is AATRIX for those that are unfamiliar. But certainly that third party, they're in constant communication with MIP, so that anytime a new year rolls around and the tax form has changed, even by one particular field, don't worry about it. Atrix has already prepared for that change, and so has MIP. So whether it's 990s, 1099s, W-2s, anything you could possibly need, MIP is already pre-programmed to handle it.
Awesome. Does Abila MIP interface with third-party applications like, what does that say, payroll systems or fundraising systems?
You want to, I'll tackle maybe the first part of this. Abila certainly is building out their API, their application interface.
Hey, jump right into it.
Interchange. And what that is allowing certain customers to do is build a bridge between the two applications. So let's say you have a third-party application or third-party payroll. I'm not going to name any names, don't need to. And then you have MIP. There is a communications bridge where information is sent in a binary direction, meaning they're pushing and pulling data without you actually having to interfere. Abila is building that out and maturing. They're still relatively new to that particular technology, so they may have an immediate answer for you, or they may tell you that they need to work on one. Regardless, there is one tried and true methodology one tried and true method that all software publishers have, and that is a flat file import. JMT is exceptional with building these flat file imports, meaning it's accepting a data dump from the third party, and we are helping you simplify the process of getting that data dump from the third party and importing it into MIP within just a few clicks of a button, and without having to manipulate the data each and every single time, which can cause issues.
Awesome. Yeah, awesome question. Can I get a free trial of MIP? Dan, you used to work at Abila. How does that work?
I myself didn't have any free trials and didn't really have access to any until I got to JMT. Yeah,
the thing with free trials is ultimately, the answer is yes, you can. But the better question you should be asking yourself is, what do I want out of a free trial? Because you're going to get an empty sandbox. Is basically what it is. It's going to have no data. There will not be much of a database to talk about. And so again, if you go back to what I said about the contract building the house, what you'll end up getting with a free trial is a bunch of building materials put out on what is supposed to be your front lawn in a few months. Doesn't mean they won't do it, don't do it. They will do it. And we can assist you with that.
Good answer.
Let me check.
Any more questions?
No, no more questions.
All right. Well, here's what's next. For more information, both Brendan and I will be getting in touch with you to ask for your feedback on the session. And really, I think that there's three answers. None of none of these answers would offend us in any way. We seriously hope that you got something out of this, and that's really the whole point. We did this to show you that there are answers out there. If you'd like more information on MIP, let us know. If you found the session valuable and maybe want to share some information or even constructive criticism, but don't need, maybe you're not in a buying mode, as they say, don't worry about it. Just let us know. Let us know what your feedback is, and continue to rely on JMT for more information on MIP, for industry trends, for financial news. Or if you just simply want us to leave you alone, let us know too. Again, we're not going to be offended.
Thank you, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Brendan.